Sup, y'all? Dave Kluge here with Football Guys, and today I'm going to give you 3 targets that you should be going out and trying to trade for right now in your fantasy football league. In addition to giving you these targets, I love helping with actual trade advice, so leave those trades down below in the comments and I will be sure to help you out with some personalized advice. If you have not already, be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys. We're bringing you short videos almost every single day. And in addition to these short videos, you can also check out all of our full-length shows like the Audible, the Launchpad, the DFS Power Grid, and so much more. So let's get into it, talking about 3 trade targets that you need to be going out and trying to get on your team right now. The first guy I'm going to talk about is somebody who has really underperformed this year. You had to pony up a second-round pick to draft him, and he just has not been returning value at that cost, but the efficiency has still been there. He leads all NFL running backs with 7.1 yards per touch. He is second among all NFL running backs in true yards per carry, breakaway run rate, and most importantly, fantasy points per touch. Now, the touches haven't been there this year, but there is reason to think that he is going to get more down the stretch. If you haven't figured it out by now, I'm talking about DeAndre Swift. Since week 3, DeAndre Swift only has 15 touches, and that can cause fantasy managers to get pretty frustrated. He's been dealing with injuries, and when he has been on the field, he's been extremely limited. After a 5-carry performance, Dan Campbell, the head coach, came out and said that we probably gave DeAndre Swift too many touches. He's dealing with an ankle problem, he's dealing with a shoulder problem, and because of that, he just isn't getting the run that we want to see, but he's one of the most dynamic players in the NFL. He is a blue-chip prospect that is absolutely electric when he gets the ball in his hands. Now, there's kind of 2 narratives that you can paint here. One is that the Detroit Lions are 2-6, their season is probably over, and they have reason to shut down DeAndre Swift. But the narrative that I'm going to go down is that Dan Campbell is 2-6 and right now is coaching for his job. What better way to save your job than to win games, and what better way to win games than by giving the ball to your most talented playmaker? I expect DeAndre Swift's usage to slowly creep up, and the nice thing is right now you can get him for close to nothing. If you've got a wide receiver too like DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett, somebody that you aren't relying on week in and week out, try to flip him for DeAndre Swift, who can be an absolute game changer when he's in your fantasy lineup, getting the touches and giving you 20 to 25 points per game. We've seen Jamal Williams running very well behind this offensive line. The Detroit Lions are actually averaging 5.0 yards per carry, which is 8th best among all teams in the NFL. This offensive line makes it easy for running backs. So if you combine an elite offensive line with elite playmaking abilities in DeAndre Swift, you've got a recipe for monster fantasy weeks. Go out and try to get DeAndre Swift for cheap while you still can. There's a chance that the next guy I'm going to talk about is still available on your waiver wire, so if he is, check immediately. If you look strictly at the box score from last week, it might look like the Miami Dolphins are running some sort of committee. But what I see is Jeff Wilson Jr. showing up in his first game and immediately out-touching, out-snapping, and out-producing Raheem Mostert. Jeff Wilson was just 1 yard shy of having twice as many yards per carry than Raheem Mostert did in his first game. Now, we expected that Jeff Wilson Jr. would be slowly eased into this role, but considering the usage that he saw in this first game, I think that it's already his backfield for the taking. When touches matter most, inside the red zone, Jeff Wilson Jr. had 5 touches to Raheem Mostert's 2 on Sunday. Expect those scales to tip even heavier in Jeff Wilson Jr.'s favor every single week going forward. A lot of people this offseason thought that Chase Edmonds was going to be the guy in Miami, and obviously that experiment did not work out. Chase Edmonds was shipped off to Denver, Jeff Wilson Jr. was brought in, and it looks like there was a very intentional signing by Mike McDaniel. Jeff Wilson Jr. has familiarity with this offense, and it makes perfect sense that Mike McDaniel would want to snag him to bring him in for a little bit of extra depth. Jeff Wilson Jr. is also 4 years younger than Raheem Mostert, and although Raheem Mostert has stayed healthy to start this season, he has never made it through a full season completely unscathed. So we're looking at Jeff Wilson Jr., who is probably going to take the lion's share of the touches out of the backfield and has huge contingent upside if something were to happen to Raheem Mostert. Right now, the Miami Dolphins are leading the entire NFL in yards per game. They're the most explosive offense in the league, and you can get the lead back for pretty cheap. He might still be available on your waiver wire, and if he isn't, go ahead and flip your wide receiver 3 or a running back 2 for Jeff Wilson Jr., who should be a plug-and-play RB2 and flex option for the rest of the season. The Cleveland Browns are winning games, but the fantasy production has been pretty hit or miss so far out of Cleveland. but it appears as if Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones have delaminated themselves from the pack and are the clear-cut wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 in Cleveland. And the points haven't really been there for Donovan Peoples-Jones yet, but the underlying metrics show that he is a screaming buy right now in fantasy football. Their efficiency metrics are nearly identical when they're on the field. If we're looking at yards per target, Donovan Peoples-Jones is averaging 13.9 and Amari Cooper is averaging 14.2. Their route participation and their routes run rate are nearly identical as well. These guys are almost always on the field when Cleveland is running a 2 wide receiver set. The big difference so far has been in the target share and the yards per route run metrics. Right now, Amari Cooper is dominating there. He's got about a 27% target share compared to Donovan Peoples-Jones' 19%. But over the last 4 weeks, Donovan Peoples-Jones is 11th in receiving yards. He is slowly starting to carve out a bigger and bigger role for himself seemingly every single week. Now, Donovan Peoples-Jones wasn't a guy that was highly touted coming out of college. He was a freak athlete, but he wasn't that refined as a wide receiver, and because of that, he slipped into the 6th round. But we're looking at a 6'2", 212-pound receiver who ran a 4.48 40-yard dash and has a burst score inside the 100th percentile, meaning he is one of the most explosive players in the NFL. And now we're starting to see some of that refinement take place as well. Currently, he is catching 76.9% of his contested catches, which ranks 9th among all wide receivers. And with his skill set as a downfield pass catcher, he is going to match up perfectly with Deshaun Watson's skill set. Watson is set to return in week 13, and I can envision a Will Fuller type of role for Donovan Peoples-Jones. Now, this is another guy who might be available on your waiver wire, but if you're in deeper leagues and you're looking for a guy to plug in for a late season hammer, Donovan Peoples-Jones has all of the signs of somebody set up to have a fantasy explosion. All of the signs are showing that Donovan Peoples-Jones is only going to get better. And with Deshaun Watson coming back for weeks 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, he could be the hammer to really help push you to a fantasy championship. If you got to go out and trade for him right now, you don't have to give up too much. And if he's available on your waiver wire, make him your #1 priority for this week. Thank you so much for checking this video out. As I said, feel free to leave some trades down below, and I will do my best to answer all of those with personalized advice. Follow me on Twitter at Dave Kluge, and be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys for more great content. Thank you so much for checking this video out. It is a pleasure helping you, and I will see you next week.